Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, I'm going to tell you which players the Las Vegas Raiders, Pete Carroll, John Spytek, could potentially draft in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. I'm going to tell you which players they could take at number 6, which players they might try to trade back for, and which players they might try to trade back up in to round 1 for. Friendly reminder that we will be live Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, and we're going to be breaking down every single pick from the 2025 NFL Draft. If you're a Raiders fan and you bleed silver and black, hope they end up pulling up here because we will be the number 1 most watched Raiders draft show in the entire world. If you bleed silver and black and you're not here, I don't even know if you're a real one. Let's go to the pick 6 candidates. To me right now, and the way that I thought about doing this show over the course of the week, the amount of times that I've been asked, Mitch, who do you think the Raiders are going to take in round 1 at pick number 6? I'm going to tell you all right now, I believe that there are only 4 names possible that the Raiders could go with at pick number 6. The first name I'm going to bring up is Ashton Jeanty, running back for Boise. And I know there's going to be a lot of people watching this show that this is the route they want the Raiders to potentially look at. He's the number 1 running back in this year's class. I think he does a lot of things extremely well. The Raiders, for a fact, do love him a lot. He's a home run hitting threat that I do think has some upside as well in the passing game. He just needs to be able to get some more reps at it. The Raiders had a top 30 visit. They had a formal combine meeting with him, pro day visit. John Spytek, Raiders running back coach, ended up meeting with Boise State head coach and Jeanty after his pro day. Brennan Carroll, the Raiders offensive line coach, also is in charge of the running game, and I would imagine Pete wants to make his kid look a little bit better. The Athletics' Dane Brugler has this to say on Jeanty. Jeanty displays exceptional contact balance, run instincts, and versatility in the passing game. Reminiscent of LaDainian Tomlinson, he has the talent to emerge as a high-level running back early in his NFL career. When you're taking a running back at pick 6, you anticipate that this is going to be somebody that you can rely on and really run into the ground. And I know that the Raiders view Ashton Jeanty as somebody like that. Spytek, I think, still loves Jeanty a lot more than what some other people might say. Let's go to another player here that's going to be on the Raiders' radar at number 6. It's Armand Membou, and he played right tackle the past 3 seasons, so you would be able to put him at right tackle, though there are some people that think that he could potentially play left tackle because of his overall upside and athletic ability. He loves to compete. He loves to absolutely embarrass people, and I do think when you look at his athletic build, it is very close to somebody like a Tristan Wirfs, who John Spytek also drafted in Tampa Bay in round 1. Now, I know that Adam Schefter, over the past, I'd say 72 hours, and at the time that I'm making this video, we're talking now past 4 or 5 days, that the conversation around Schefter talking about Membou has grown significantly. And anytime Schefter starts talking about something, the nation needs to listen because Schefter's been very well tied with this organization. He was one of the people who are saying they're not going to go out and get Ben Johnson, and everybody for the Raiders was like, oh no, Ben Johnson's going to be an option. Schefter's been very, very loud about the Raiders and Membou. Spytek also hinted that they could use one of their 9 picks, also didn't commit to DJ Glaze. And if you don't know, Spytek loves offensive linemen. You probably live underneath a rock. So now I want you to look into your crystal balls and tell me, this will be the pinned comment on today's show. Who do you think the Raiders will end up drafting at pick number 6 of the 2025 NFL Draft? My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. If it was up to me, I'd go Armand Membou, but I'll sit up here and I'll continuously say the top 3 players most likely that the Raiders pick at 6, it is Ashton Jeanty, it is Armand Membou, and it is also Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan. And I love his first step. I love his ability to see plays very, very quickly. He sheds blocks, he takes on double teams, and you can never have too many defensive linemen. Your wrestling background, Chugs and I always talk about WWE. You could tell that Mason Graham has a high school wrestling background because guy just dominates in the trenches. The Raiders held a top 30 visit with him. They also met with him at the NFL Combine. Does have a lot of Michigan ties with Brady, has a lot of Michigan ties to John Spytek. And if you're telling me what this Raiders organization has done, they've done their best to make sure Max Crosby is a happy individual. You add Mason Graham, there's no way that Max Crosby is going to be upset about the way that this offseason has gone, and the Raiders do clearly value trenches. The Athletics' Dane Brugler says that Graham is a leverage monster and skillfully destroys blocks with his strength, quickness, motor, and play recognition to make an impact versus both pass and run. He projects as a versatile interior presence with the floor of an NFL starter. I will say that if you were to tell me out of Armand Membou, out of Ashton Jeanty, out of Mason Graham, who do I think is the safest player from that mix? I think it's Mason Graham. And I only say that because when you have a motor like Max and you're able to add interior defensive line with already the talent we have on top of Rob Leonard, Mason Graham to me might be the safest pick that they could go with. Though, I do want to throw out one more name here that, based on what we've been hearing, I think could end up actually being gone at pick number 4 to the New England Patriots. But if he's available, Will Campbell will also be another player on the Raiders' radar. And I know that he looks like an offensive tackle, but the T-Rex arms are scaring some teams away, and maybe some teams view him as an offensive guard. I think he's amazing in the run game, amazing as a pass blocker, might be the most pro-ready offensive lineman in this year's draft. I do think that his floor is safer than Armand Membou, but his ceiling is not nearly as high as what Membou's is. The other reason why, though, you got to bring up Will Campbell is because the Raiders didn't have a pro day visit, didn't have a top 30 visit, didn't have a combine visit with Membou. They did have a top 30 visit with Will Campbell. They did meet with him at the NFL Combine. And if we're going to say all these things that we have been saying around John Spytek with Membou, I think you also got to be able to bring it up with Will Campbell. The problem is, where exactly do you put him? Because if you're drafting him now, you're probably drafting him at left guard to put next to Colt Miller. But what if he's your replacement for Colt Miller if you don't end up extending him? Dane Brugler had this to say: Campbell's mediocre arm length lessens his margin for error, but his athletic movements, core strength, and competitive finish help him stay connected through the whistle regardless of the block required. His skill set is reminiscent of a more powerful version of Colts left tackle Bernard Raymond, although some NFL teams project him best as an interior blocker. So I'm sitting up here telling all y'all right now, the 4 players that I believe are the most likely to be the Raiders' pick at number 6, Mason Graham, Ashton Jeanty, Armand Membou, tier break, Will Campbell. Let's now go to the players that if the silver and black were to trade back, and I'll admit, Schefter did report on, I want to say it was Monday or Tuesday, that he didn't view the Raiders as a trade back team. But if you get a good offer, anything's going to be potentially on the table. I'll tell you which players could potentially make you trade back. And I don't know about you, the NFL draft, I am going to be sweating it the entire time. Luckily, our sponsor, Mando, is going to help me not stink, because you can control body odor anywhere with Mando. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Spring is in the air and it's warming up, which means Chuck walks, Alex date nights, and me prepping for my wedding in June. Mando controls odor for 72 hours. It's clinically proven. Clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's Grundle odor level was a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average Grundle odor level was a 0 out of 10. I like using Mando because I sweat literally all the time, and because it's a full body deodorant, I can take it with me on the go. I can use it on my pits, my package, my Grundle, my balls, belly button, butt cracks, stinky crevices, stomach folds, and feet. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free byproducts of your choice. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com. Please support the Raiders Report. Tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, let's talk about some players here that the Raiders could potentially be looking at if they trade back. Reminder, this is round 1 draft targets. I don't think that the Raiders are going to draft any of these other players that I'm about to mention at number 6. I have been surprised before, but I do also know that the Raiders do have players that they are looking at in round 1, and I think they're looking at them just in case they do end up trading back. First player I'm going to talk about here is defensive back Jahdae Barron from Texas, and a true Swiss Army knife. And for the Raiders, you're looking for a nickel corner, and I still think that you're looking for a free safety. Jahdae Barron can play both of those positions, and I do think that he's a quicker than fast athlete, but has great instincts. Coaches rant and rave about how versatile that he is, and he can defend a run, he can defend the pass, he can go out there and he can blitz. The Silver and Black didn't meet with him at the NFL Combine, and because Pete Carroll loves defensive backs that have versatility, and because Patrick Graham loves versatility in general, Barron is going to be a player to keep in mind. I will also say this. I thought Barron really held his own against Ohio State, a team that Chip Kelly obviously has a lot of ties with. And when you look at that game, Ohio State and Texas, Jahdae Barron was one of the better players in that game. In terms of the Athletics' Dane Brugler, he has this to say. Barron doesn't have the top-tier size that most teams prioritize at the position, but he trusts his instincts and competes with the toughness and ball skills to hold up versus pass or run. Some teams view him as a nickel-only prospect, while others see his value to play multiple positions across the secondary. There are going to be some teams that have Barron as the number 1 overall corner. There's going to be some teams that have Will Johnson as the number 1 overall corner, which is exactly where we're going here next. Big, long, athletic corner, which I know Pete Carroll loves. I will say his biggest weakness is his recovery speed, and the 40-yard time, it's a concern for some people. The injuries are a concern for some people with Will Johnson. But when you look at just the tape from 2022, 2023, and in 2024, I believe Will Johnson is the best cornerback in college football through those 3 seasons. They had a top 30 visit with him, had a formal combine meeting with him. Also, a lot of ties to Tom Brady, John Spytek, Pete Carroll's got his, cornerback ties. But then also I was told, and this is, again, we sent a team to Chat Sports to the Combine. One of our Combine sources told me that the Raiders asked Mason Graham about Will Johnson. And for whatever reason, that has just stuck with me, because if you really want to know a player, ask his teammates about him. And that's what the Raiders did. Will Johnson is more good than great in terms of twitch and speed, but he has outstanding eyes, feet, and coverage IQ to match and make plays on the football. He projects as a day 1 starting outside cornerback in the NFL. Honestly, when I think about the best version of Will Johnson, kind of reminds me of Richard Sherman, a player where, again, wasn't like an outstandingly crazy athlete, but you just knew when he was on the field, he was going to lock down one side, and he loved football. Will Johnson loves football. Let's go to another player that I think would surprise some people if the Raiders picked him at number 6, but I'm telling y'all right now, I don't think that the nation realizes how much the Raiders like Jalon Walker, outside linebacker from Georgia. And because he's an outside linebacker prospect that offers you a lot of versatility, whether it's being able to get after the quarterback, whether it's go against the run, drop back into coverage. Like, I have thrown out the names like Kyle Van Noy, Andrew Van Ginkel before on this show, and Jalon Walker isn't either of those players, but he's kind of like that style of you can do a lot of different things with him, and because he comes from a program like Georgia, and because scouts have said his leadership is famous in the Georgia building, that means a lot to the Raiders. I was also told over the weekend that one of the things that the Raiders will look for when drafting this year is players that were built in a program. And if you're a Raiders fan, you're going to know what I'm saying exactly when I say this. Think about how many times Tom Brady has talked about why he is the quarterback that he is and how he was able to get better and build himself in Michigan, where he was able to learn what it takes to be, successful in a program. John Spytek comes from that exact same mentality. And right now you're seeing a lot of kids, they transfer, they go around, they're not learning what it takes to be a team. The Raiders right now are trying to find guys that know what it takes to be a part of a team, to build something special, and they think a guy like Jalon Walker could potentially be that player. Walker doesn't have elite size for edge work, but he is at his best using his long, sleek athleticism to explode downhill and close at top of his rush to affect the quarterback. There is a projection involved with his evaluation, but his pass rush upside and overall versatility make him one of the best talents in this year's class. And because the Raiders have been looking at edge prospects, they've been looking for a Caleb Chase replacement. Patrick Graham a few years ago drafted an Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. And again, not same style of player overall, but Jalon Walker hype has been around for a long time. And if you were to ask me which player do I think the Raiders could take at 6, that would be like the most shocking pick overall, my vote would be Jalon Walker. I'm just hoping that it wouldn't be the pick at 6. It would be a pick if the Raiders ended up trading back. Let's now go to the players that I could see the Raiders trading back up into round 1 for. Before, though, I get into that list, the number one thing that I think that always can screw up the NFL draft is quarterbacks and where exactly quarterbacks are going to go. And some of you are probably watching this video going right now like, well, wait a minute, you didn't mention Shedeur Sanders. You're right. I don't think that there's any chance in hell the Raiders take Shedeur Sanders at pick number 6. I don't think there's any chance in hell if the Raiders were to trade back the Raiders take Shedeur Sanders. I don't think Shedeur goes in the top 16 picks. So with that mindset, will the Raiders draft a quarterback in round 1? I want you to type D for draft. I want you to type P for pass. My answer is this. I know for a fact the Raiders will not take a quarterback at number 6, but maybe they end up taking one in the back end of round 1. I still don't expect the Raiders to take a QB in round 1 because I know that they've been linked to multiple names out there, and I would say that there is a chance Cam Ward is the only QB that gets taken in round 1. But watch out for teams like Minnesota. Watch out for a team like the Rams and, the Bills. They could potentially trade back. But the quarterbacks right now, Shedeur, Jalen Milroe, Jaxson Dart, Tyler Shough, all 4 of these guys can go in round 1. All 4 of these guys also can fall out of round 1. The reason why that I bring up those names is because I don't see the Raiders trading into the back end of round 1 for any 4 of those quarterbacks. I know, might surprise some people. If Shedeur's on the board at pick 32, I don't think that the Raiders try to trade back up and go get him. I think the Raiders are very content potentially getting a quarterback a little bit later on, like on day 3, because they believe in Geno Smith so much. But to me, there are 3 players that if they start falling down the board, the Raiders are going to pick up the phone and they're going to call. The first guy, Emeka Egbuka. And, I said this on our live show on Tuesday. If Egbuka and Tetairoa McMillan were both available at 37, obviously never going to happen. But because of the Chip Kelly ties, I think that they would go with Emeka Egbuka. This is a player that this organization loves. And they also love him, though, because of the Chip Kelly ties, but it's also because Egbuka really does remind me of a Jackson Smith-Njigba, who Geno Smith had a great relationship with in Seattle, and the fact that he can do a lot of these different things, run a complete route tree, and loves to be able to block, just does a lot of different things for you. That is very valuable to the Raiders, and, it showed up last season with Ohio State. He was not the best receiver for the Buckeyes, but he ended up being a really good 2. Jakobi Meyers, Emeka Egbuka, Brock Bowers, good luck defending that. Let's go to another player here that this has been a name. Again, I am recording this on Tuesday when we go live. This was a name that was mentioned to me on Sunday, Mykel Williams, and it's another edge from Georgia. Not somebody that they're looking at very high, but this is a player. If he starts falling down the board, the Raiders will be a team that does come calling. He is a high-quality run stopper with great power, strong bull rush. Physical skill set is there, but the pass rush production, will it arrive? I'm not sure. Because the Raiders believe in Rob Leonard, I could see them potentially roll with a guy like Mykel Williams. Now, he is raw, and there's no doubt about it. Very, very raw. And when you see the athletic ability, you're going, am I about to get myself into another Tyree Wilson? Because that's kind of what Mykel Williams reminds me of, is another like Tyree Wilson, where he's super athletic, and yet the production just doesn't quite line up. The final player that I'm going to bring up here is a name that Raiders fans got to start recognizing. It's Kelvin Banks Jr., and most recently, Albert Breer said that he's heard the Raiders could even take him at number 6. I would be shocked, and I get it, because he's a left tackle. He's not better than Will Campbell. He's not better than Armand Membou. Some people do view him as a guard overall, and because some teams view him as a guard, maybe he slides in the draft. But I also know there's a lot of teams that view him as a starting left tackle. Because there are legit conversations right now around the Raiders being interested in him, if Banks does start to slide down into the later 20s, and if the Raiders do end up drafting Ashton Jeanty and they pass on an Armand Membou, they pass on a Will Campbell, keep an eye out there for Kelvin Banks. Again, a lot of Steve Sarkisian connections, and Pete Carroll really does value what Sarkisian has to say. Banks doesn't have ideal length and needs to improve his sustained tactics to be a consistent finisher against NFL talent, but he has controlled footwork and depth in his pass sets, plus the fundamental know-how to fit and leverage blocks and keeps defenders occupied. He projects as an immediate NFL starter who can stay at tackle, although his best long-term position might be guard. And there will be teams, because of that write-up, or because that teams view him as a guard, I do think Kelvin Banks is a player that honestly could go as high as, like, I've seen in the top 10. I think he could also, though, slide down the board a little bit. And for the Raiders, they like Kelvin Banks Jr. It's a name that you got to keep in mind. So the way that I'm going to end this video is this. I have ranked the top options for the Raiders at pick number 6 based on what I believe. I will still say that Ashton Jeanty is the number 1 most likely option for the Raiders. I will then go with Armand Membou at number 2, Mason Graham at number 3, Will Campbell at number 4, Jalon Walker at 5, Will Johnson at 6, Jahdae Barron at 7, trade back at number 8. If you disagree with anything that I say, you can always yell at me on social media at Mitchell Renz 365. And a friendly reminder again, we will be live for the NFL Draft, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. If you're a Raiders fan and you want to hang out with us for the entire draft, every single pick, and I mean all picks in the NFL Draft, not just the Raiders, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure your notifications are turned on.